ladies and gentlemen. We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, you guys, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I got a very special guest. I'm going to bring him up here shortly. Just a quick reminder, you guys, our weekly newsletter drops tomorrow, okay? I will not auto sign you up if I have your email address, but if you want to go and register for it, just go to thefreightcoach.com. It'll auto prompt you to do it. We always do some, it's all industry specific. We'll drop some rates in there. We'll talk about fuel prices, all of that stuff. But again, it's all value-based for the transportation industry. So if you want to hit it up, go to thefreightcoach.com. All right, you guys, I'm going to bring them up right now. We're going to talk. It's going to be a very open-ended conversation today, you guys. We don't know where the direction is going to be, but I have the founder and CEO of Valeroo on the show, Mr. Nick Schrock. Nick, thank you so much for joining me, though.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
No, absolutely, man. And, as we were talking before we just got on, you have now recently moved up to Reno, Nevada now. And I love how you called it Nevada right away. And that is the running. It really pisses people in Nevada off when you call it Nevada. So I always refer to it as Nevada because my brother lives in Vegas. So it's just one of those things I always love to drive home because it really irritates people from there.
That's funny. Yeah, it was kind of like I was originally from St. Louis, but on the Illinois side. And then anytime someone said Illinois, it's just like you just tweak a little. You don't say anything, your eye twitches.
It's plural. There's two of them. That's why they call it Illinois.
Yeah.
So, dude, how'd you get your start in freight, Nick? Like, what brought you into this industry?
Yeah, so I was selling. We talked a little bit about. We both have background in sales, but I was selling enterprise event management software to conventions centers in St. Louis. And my now wife, we were dating in St. Louis. We were like, hey, we both wanted to move out west to San Diego or LA or whatever it was. She's in supply chain as well. And she got a job running the supply chain for, I think it was Don Joy or one of the large shippers out there. And they actually moved us out. And being in sales, you're like, well, it's like if you're good at sales, you can get a job really anywhere. You've got a track record of success. So just quit, moved out there. I just started applying at a lot of places. And one of the places that I applied to was a small freight startup. There's like 10 guys in the back room of another carrier that he owned, which is now Flock Freight, right? It started out as optics, and it was just, they were like, hey, we're trying to optimize LTL and do these different things. So I started out just as a broker for them, just cold calling shippers, quickly transitioned. They noticed I was a data geek, and they're like, hey, will you run our sales data? Make sure like we have good cold call conversions, this type of thing. Took that over, was successful. And then after that, they're like, hey, we're trying to scale this thing. Can you look at offshoring, right? Can you help build out a lead generation team in the Philippines? So I took that over. That was very successful, and then started outsourcing other things like quoting admin, a number of other, even account management, stuff like that. And well, that's how I transitioned out of like direct selling freight, because I was running our customer acquisition and then some of our offshore teams. And that's where the idea of Valeroo came from too.
Dude, I like that. I think like that's my favorite part about interviewing individuals, on this show is hearing people's stories about it, right? Because I feel like, the traditional transportation people always think, driver, dock worker, broker, stuff like that is like the only roles inside of the industry. But it's like, I feel like a lot of people come in, they kind of get a taste, and then an idea gets sparked, right? And like, and that's for me, when it comes down to like building a business and entrepreneurship, that's the fun part. Now I'm 5 years into being self-employed, but it's like looking back, and it's like, dude, it's just that idea that you can capitalize on and build out on. And then you find that passion, and it just happens to be under the transportation umbrella. And I feel like now, like, man, we truly are in a global workforce, like you don't need to be in the United States to work in the United States anymore like it used to be, like 4 short years ago, right? And now with it, I mean, I know that there's a big call out there to return to the office and everything else, but like, I guess I'm of the mindset with a lot, and I'd love to get your opinion on this as well. I'm of the mindset inside of my company as we grow and scale. Yes, we will have offices, but like at the end of the day, man, I'm a parent. And if you need to go for whatever thing, as long as your work's done, like if I say, hey, I need this by 2:00, as long as I get the shit by 2:00, I don't care if you're on a family, event or whatever that looks like, because I want to try and find that balance. But like, I see the benefit of both, I guess, is what I'm really trying to get at.
Yeah. And it's remote because we run both teams. It's like I have an office in San Diego. I have an office in Belize. It's like Philippines is mainly remote, even though we do have an office. So I've definitely learned there's positives and negatives of both. It's like in office is just easier, right? It's like you can walk over to somebody and talk to them and do these different things. Where remote, we've had to build like a ton of processes to make that successful, where it's like, hey, we're taking random screenshots of people's monitors every couple of minutes. We're tracking keystrokes, mouse strokes, what applications they're on. We're tracking KPIs on a daily basis. And it's made us be extremely hands-on in our management of employees. But it's also allowed us kind of something we really didn't think about. We were just doing that. It's like, well, this is what we have to do to manage the employees. But you give the reps and the agents more one-on-one time, and they actually develop so much faster in a remote environment, because it's not just, you don't just think they're going to develop by being in the office. It's like, no, you got to coach them. You got to review their calls. You have to listen to and review their work. And because we're doing all that, they spot their mistakes way earlier. They develop faster. And I'm a very big fan of remote work. Honestly, the main reason we have offices is because a lot of our customers have the idea. It's like, no, I want butts and seats. I want them in the office. And I want to be able to offer that service, which we do. Yeah. However, if I could choose, I think you're going to be able to draw in higher levels of talent by offering remote work. And it's just an added benefit that your competitors probably aren't doing.
No, I'm right there with you, right? Like, I'm not closed off to the idea, right? Like, I know that there's some people who are like very hard lined about it. I feel like as we're getting our business off the ground, it will be definitely more in person, like that's one thing that we want to do. But like at the end of the day, like me and my business partner, he's in Minnesota, I'm in Arizona, right? Like we work and communicate just fine with each other. Now, granted, when there's more people, added layers of complexity, we'll cross that bridge when we pass it. But I feel like, I'm not closed off to the idea. And I feel like, in today's day and age, if you truly want the best players out there, are you going to get them in your community, or are you going to be willing, like we were talking about how, we both moved out from the Midwest, right? Like, are you going to be an employer who's going to be willing to pony up the moving cost for somebody to bring them in? If you're, say they're on the East Coast and you want them to move out West, are you going to pay for that? Like, how does that look? And I feel like, from my perspective, and then another thing too, man, moving takes time, getting settled takes time. Like, if you really want to, expedite a lot of that onboarding, I feel like, why not have them start remote and then, just do something like that? I don't know. I feel like you need to be more open to the way things are now, and you don't want to close a door on a potential rock star than by being kind of stuck in your ways, right? And I look at it like this as well. And and I want to kind of talk a little bit more about selling, because like I actually just commented on somebody's post about this, about the difference between a hunter and a farmer in the sales role, and how I had said that I think it's like less than 10% of sales reps are actual hunters. I think like there's way more farmers that are out there. And again, there's a time and a place for everything, but I feel like you're an account manager at that point. I feel like it's a completely different role, because Nick, I want to get your opinion on this. How much easier is it to grow a book of business that's already been onboarded and you're just managing it day to day, as opposed to building from $0 to that point?
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason there's 1,000 books on 0 to 1. It's like, it's just the first $100,000 of business is so much harder than going from 10 million to 20 million even. And it's just, and some of that's just knowing what you're doing in the experience, but it's really just just even now, if we turned off all of our outbound, we'd still get customers for the next 6 to 8 months because it's you're farming what you did, the activity you did over the last year or two. And hunting and farming is almost like, to me, they're one and the same. It's like, I think almost I blend this to sales and marketing. I was like, the best marketers are sales guys. Yeah. It's like, because they think of it that way, where marketing, it's like, well, it's just views and click-through. It's like, well, hold on. It's like, I don't need a bunch of views. It's like, I need actual conversations to be happening and things like that.
Yeah. I look at it like this, man, where it's like, again, they're both very valuable parts of organizations, right? Like, I don't want to discredit it, but I feel like, I just know that and the amount of people that I've talked to in this industry that are business owners or leaders of organizations that are like, man, I just want somebody to go out there and pound the phones, pound the pavement, and bring on this business. And I'm like, okay, well, are they expected to do that and manage a book of business as well on top of it? Or are they expected just to bring on business? And I feel like, again, a business development rep and an account manager are two very separate things, because it's like, and I'm saying this from a point of somebody who's organically done this now.
Right. Are you guys split on your side? You have your business development and then other people manage the accounts?
No, dude, it's just me and my business partner.
So you guys are just full on.
We're doing everything right now. And I know for a fact that you have to budget out your day so much more as you're going out there. And then you're adding, freight involved, and moving all of that. And, everybody wants to sit here and say that they're the best at everything, but I'm just going to continue to be real with people. It is very hard to be in sales mode and then operations mode, and then jumping back and forth in between that, right? So I feel like kind of having those defined roles is crucial as your business develops out, right? Like, I am a major fan of operating in the pod model. That's a model that I had worked in for a very long time as a freight broker. And there is a lot of value in having a senior sales rep, a junior sales rep, a couple of carrier reps, and then a traffic coordinator on the same table who are all managing it, right? And I know that we could go on for days about split model, cradle to grave, everything else. But I've just found that to be the most effective thing, because when you're working as a team out there, your carrier reps need to know how hard it is to get customers, just like your customer reps need to know how hard it is to cover the freight that they misquote and everything else that come along with it, right? So I feel like at the end of the day, you need to have that singular focus inside of your business, because I know everybody has limitations, whether you want to admit it or not. I know my limitations that are out there because, like, again, you get this, Nick, you founded your company. There's a time and a place where it's like, dude, you're doing 18 different things and you're spinning your wheels. You're never making progress. You're stuck in neutral. Nothing's happening because you're spread too thin. And, a really good book on a lot of that is Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell, and hiring, people out there. But everybody reaches those walls in productivity. And I feel like a lot of organizations pigeonhole themselves because their expectations of what their team should do are vastly different than what they're actually needing to do. Like, I budget out my day where it's like, dude, for the first hour of my day, I'm following up on existing business, right? Managing our current shipments. And then the next hour and a half, all outbound cold calls. That's what I do. I try and get at least 35 cold calls in that time so I can focus just on cold calls.
So with that, because I'd love to get a little tactical in the sales conversations are just it's nostalgic for me. It's one thing, the one department I could talk about all day. It's how say someone's joining the freight industry, they're a freight broker, they're trying to build their book. How many phone calls would you say they need to make a day?
I honestly think if you are just starting out, you need to do no more than 25 calls in a day.
More than 25.
I'm talking like first week or 2 weeks on the phone.
Got it. Sure. Yeah. So after that, let's say they're onboarded, they understand it. Yeah, they're going. Yeah. I feel like 25, it's like all my customers would be like, don't let that guy talk to my reps. Yeah. It's like 25. Yeah.
Absolutely. But I feel like this 0 to 100 thing is where you create more burnout than anything.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I have found that 50 so far is like a very good number where I can touch a lot of accounts in a day and I can do my job effectively. And we're starting to mess with that data a little bit here, where as our freight volume increases, we're going to increase our call volumes a little bit too, because we want to find, can we get a couple more dials in a day and still service our customers at an extremely high level as volume increases? But I think that people put the expectation of, you need 100 dials in a day. I
it's a round number.
Nick,
are you guys doing texts and emails too? It's like, how are you segment? Because I'm sure it's like, hey, you call, send them an email, you missed them, things like that. Yep. Are you guys, or maybe a more fun question is like, what's one of the most creative things you've seen other people do? It's like, whether it's giftology, sending people unique stuff, or just unique wording. Do you guys have anything?
I think that from my perspective, I want to take the all business value proposition first. Like, here is who we are. This is what we do. All right. Like, I feel like people put too much emphasis on creating a friendship too soon in the sales process, right? Where for me, it's like, dude, this is who we are. This is what we do. We're here if you need us, right? Like, at the end of the day, I'm a service provider as a freight broker. I am not here to reinvent the wheel. None of us are reinventing the wheel, no matter what marketing terms you want to throw in front of people. All you need to do is put your value proposition out there and then balance out. Like, we've just found a lot of success, Nick, in asking the prospect, if they're like, hey, we're good right now. Hey, I completely understand. When's the best time for me to follow up with you? Is it next month? Is it 3 months? Yeah. They will always tell you that. And again, it's like, it's staying in front of them without working yourself out of an opportunity. I've just found that in today's freight market, man, the rejection is like, it's even higher than it was in the past, because there's so many people that are calling right now. There's so many people that are reaching out, where it's like, I just envision, and again, I could be completely fucking wrong here with this, Nick. I just envision that people put these prospects in two buckets. They put that, hey, that person's phone, that number, that when my number comes across, they're like, hey, that person was at least pleasant to talk with. If they call us back, or when they call us back, I'm going to give them an opportunity to talk. And then there's the bucket of, if you don't listen to anything that they're saying, they will block your number, they will block your email, and you will never, ever get access.
I think that's the biggest one that a lot of sales reps miss. It's actually just listening, right? Yes. It's like, anytime I'm teaching sales, it's always just, which I go through. It's like, hey, your intro, your value prop in this order, your discovery. Then I triple circle discovery. It's like, be genuinely curious of what they're going on. It's like, if you're pitching, you have the cheapest freight on the market, but they're shipping computers or glass or something really fragile. It's like, they don't want the cheapest freight. They want the highest quality freight that's going to get it there. Hey, they're a just-in-time manufacturer. It's like, well, it can't be a day late, because that shuts a factory down. Yeah. So all these things that, if you just stop and listen to the shipper while they're talking to you, of course they're mean. You're pitching price when they're telling you price doesn't matter, but that doesn't wrap around your broker brain. So actually, like, listening and delivering value based on what they're saying, I think is so underrated in so many sales reps. And it's so hard to do, because we all want to talk and you're not really listening. You're just not. So,
and that's why it's like, I think Gary Vee wrote the book, Jab, Jab, Right Hook. Yeah. And, you know, a lot of that is, dude, I just like throwing a little bit out there, because I want to gauge how they are as a person.
Yeah.
You know, because some people, dude, they don't want to talk to you. You caught them at the wrong moment, and you're just going to piss them off the more you push your product, as opposed to really kind of sprinkling a couple of things in there. But again, if you actually know what you're talking about, and this is why I say go with 50, have them become subject matter experts. I know what to ask some of these open deck shippers to get them talking, because I know about their freight. Right. All right. I am not just calling them for the sake of calling them. I know the intricacies, the ins and outs of their business, and I'll throw my introduction in there, try and hook their attention. And then from there, ask them a specific question about their product. Hey, this machine or this building product, do you guys only go direct to job site? And if you do go direct to job site, do you guys primarily need Moffett trucks to come in there and do job site offloads? That right there, just a little specifics, it's going to give you an opportunity to follow up, because I am not naive to think anybody that I call is just going to give me access to their business. But I have the confidence that if they did, I could execute that freight at a high level. And I think having that discernible outcome in your mind it's another overlooked thing, man. People are only concerned about how do I make as much money as possible. And then another thing, if their KPI is hit 100 calls a day, how many of those are they rushing off the phone because fuck, I'm bogged down. I got to get 80 more calls in today or my boss is going to wear me out.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, a business is just how much value you can drive. And I don't even want to run the numbers on it, and how much money we lose in the first 3 months of working with someone, just because where it's like, let's just stack the deck. Like someone hires, let's say you want to hire 5 ops people. It's like, we give them 10, we give you 5 free people for their first 2 months. We build out all of their standard operating procedures. We have a manager, not to mention the sales rep that sold it in, overseeing, making sure. And it's like, it's incredibly expensive. But if we drive so much value out of the gate, it just lets the relationship be so much longer. And if I plan on working with people for 5-10 years and this be a long-term thing, none of that early cost matters, because it's just like, hey, let's drive a ton of value and go from there.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. I want to answer this question. Robert Cowton said, if a brokerage has different people doing sales versus operations, those teams have to be dialed in. When a dispatcher is dealing with a lot of load issues plus new customer freight, what's priority? I look at it like this, Robert. And for me, it's like, what is the biggest fire? Attack that first and work your way down. It sounds very simple, but like, I am very much on a just absolute mission this year to simplify my day and follow my daily tasks. So if I'm faced with 3 or 4 fires at the same time, it might be the first fire that came through, or if I assess all of them and I'm like, all right, this is the biggest issue, and then work my way down from there. That's just the simplest and shortest way to answer that. But there is no perfect answer in that moment, man, because I'm not accounting for human emotion. And that is always one thing that really comes into play when it comes to dealing with a lot of that.
Yeah, and we ran a ton of numbers on if a shipper had an issue within their first 3 shipments with us, the retention rate plummeted.
Yep.
Right? Because you hadn't built, like we said, you don't build any trust until you've moved some freight, you've proven you can take care of it. Now this is just it depends is the real answer. It's like, well, if your new shipper moves one shipment a quarter, and your existing customer is a daily shipper, I think we all know which one of those should get the bulk of your attention. But if it's like, hey, you just onboarded one of the top 10 shippers in the US and you've got somebody else who's of the same nature, it's like, I'd probably tell you to focus on the new shipper, just because the likelihood of you churning them within the first month or so because you're having these issues, that's the only experience they have with you. And they're going to think that's just your business. Yeah. Where the customer you've had for a year, you've probably built trust over that year, and there might be a little more lenient with you. But again, it really depends. But the first few shipments are critical for brokerages.
No, I feel like setting the tone is like if we're talking about after the customer's onboarded, setting the tone, like, and I try and tell people this all the time is like, when you're going out there and you're cold calling, dude, selling is always going to be the easiest part of the equation, because you're not actually fucking doing any work, right? Like, you're not dealing with traffic. You're not dealing with a weather event. You're not dealing with a driver that was hung up at a previous delivery or hung up at your delivery now. Like, there's no other ulterior things that are going on. So it's like, when you're going out there and developing that book of business and you're going out there and making those cold calls, this is the easiest it ever is. Okay. So it's like, maybe that will help you take the weight off of your shoulders as you're going out there and prospecting, right? Because like, I might be one of the only people who openly admits this. Selling is hard. All right. Building a business is hard. It is extreme. At least for me, it is. I mean, maybe
I wouldn't say you're the only one. I think it's the hardest part about business is getting customers. So.
But like, I feel like, and that's why if we can simplify the process for a lot of people and put actual tangible goals in front of them, where it's like this, rip the Band-Aid off. Here, you better be making 150 calls, robo dialing. There's 80 phone numbers getting dialed at the same time. And dude, I just believe in the slow and steady approach to a lot of this. I believe in taking my time, calling the right customers and trying to qualify them, right? Like, I've gamified it in my head where if a customer tells me we're X or we're Y and they'll never work with us, boom, remove them from my list. not going to hang. I'm not going to convince you to want to work with me. Screw that, man. I want to go after the next one. And when I gamified it like that, it removed so much. I was able to implement so much more clarity inside of my sales process, because again, I don't do LTL. If you're LTL, boom, perfect. No worries. You work with asset only, awesome. I'm not here to convince you of why you should just work with a broker, because I look at it as, dude, I need revenue. I need to find yes, we move full truckload. Yes, we work with freight brokers. It might not be a yes, we'll give you business today, but that is somebody who I can qualify in the moment to want to follow up with.
Yeah. And I think it all goes along with a lot of, because our main customers are brokerages, right?
Yeah.
Of who we're selling to. And the last, 3 or 4 years have been tough, right? It's been really tough for the market. And a lot of people have gone out of business or been struggling. And so they're like, hey, Nick, what are people doing that are making them successful and thriving in this market? It's like, are they implementing all this automation? Are they doing this and doing like tech stack? And I'd say everyone's working towards that, but there's no way that's the differentiator. They're doing the basics right. It's like they're taking care of their customers. They're making the dials. They're not reinventing the wheel and trying to be super creative. They're running a super clean freight brokerage. They do what they say they're going to do. They don't overpromise. They overdeliver. Just kind of the basics you're talking about. It's the people who are still doing well in today's freight market.
I think that most people underestimate what they actually have. Like, they overestimate what they actually need to be doing on a day-to-day basis, right?
100%.
Like,
yeah.
Yes, automation is great if you can afford it.
Yeah.
All right. It is phenomenal if you can afford it. But if you are like the majority of businesses that are out there, and again, you guys can Google this, most small businesses are 30 days from going out of business every single month due to cash flow constraints and revenue constraints and everything else. If you are in that category, focus on the fundamentals. All right. Simplify what you're doing. I'm trying to save you guys a couple of years here, because I spent the first few years of being self-employed fucking going in every other which way out there. But now I feel like I'm on the right track, man. We're doing the same shit day in and day out. Business development. I said, my number is 50 cold calls in a day. I hit that every single day. If I hit 56 cold calls in a day because I'm feeling feisty, guess what? Tomorrow, still have to hit 50. All right. And that's the approach. And it's
hard to do as a sales rep, to be honest. It is.
Day in
to not cheat yourself by 4 the next or 6 the next day. Yeah.
And that's exactly it, right? Because you get told no 99% of the time. All right. But here's the reality. All right. And I try and put this out there as much as possible. In today's market, I have found this: the more prepared I am with my cold call, i.e., I'm going after my target market and I don't want the best, I don't want all of their opportunity or whatever it is, exponentially more professional response. More people than not, although it might not be a yes, they are very cordial with you. They will let you down nicely. Yes, there's a couple of exceptions to that rule, but I would say out of the people who are picking up the phone and I'm actually talking to, respect goes a long way. And when you show respect, they're going to give you respect back. They're going to let you know, hey, actually, the person you need to talk to isn't here today. This is their name. I'm going to transfer you to their voicemail. But again, when you call me back, they're like, dude, it's wild. I've found,
and again, you're not reinventing the wheel there. It's like, that's just good sales. It really is. I've got a sales rep. He's a monster. He kills it. He's been making, 70, 80 dials a day for 10 years. We've been working together. But he's like, I think it's his way of coping with people being jerks on the phone. And so it's like somebody hangs up on him. He just calls him back and he knows it's not going to be a sale. He's like, hey, I think we got disconnected. And then he'll just keep it going. I'm like, dude, you're crazy. I would just move on, like shrug it off and make the next call. But it's pretty fun.
I would too, man. That's wild. Again, I just looked at it as like, I've caught some people at the wrong time on a cold call. And I've called them back in a couple of weeks and they actually remembered. They're like, hey man, we talked a few weeks ago, didn't we? And then they brought that up in that moment. Like, hey, you caught me at a wrong time. That's not what I meant. And again, it didn't lead to a sale or anything, but they recognized it, right? So it's like, that's why I don't believe in like,
I can't be mad at them because like we said, every time you're calling and you're doing sales the right way, there's 5 other guys who have to make 120 because their boss is making them They've never taught how to be discovery and ask good questions.
Yeah.
So they're like, hey, we're in contract till next March. It's like, well, just give me some spot quote. It's like, well, we don't have spot. We're in contract till next March. It's like, well, just give me one thing. It's like, man, you're not listening.
Yeah.
You're not listening to the shipper. He'd probably be willing to add you to that bid in like a couple of months, but you're trying to force this, $1,200 load where you can make, 10% margins on. It's like, and you're giving up the multi-million-dollar opportunity, but just because you're not doing a good discovery call.
The longer you chase a no, you're costing yourself a yes. All right.
Yeah.
And that's really what it boils down to. But Nick, man, I appreciate your time, man. This flew by.
Super. I mean, talking sales, we could do this every day and have a different conversation.
100%, man. But dude, I appreciate you joining me, man. How does anybody reach out to you guys to find out more about what you got going on?
Yeah. So Valoroo.com, we do offshore, nearshore staffing specific to brokers and asset-based companies. So VALOROO.com. And then, or just send me an email. It's nick@valoroo.com.
Perfect. That works. Nick, thank you so much for joining me. That is going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back tomorrow. As always, if you guys got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there to your network, because if you see value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.